Some people win the lottery. I took a wrong turn. Not the kind that lands you in a sketchy neighborhood or gets you a parking ticket. No, I took the kind of wrong turn that reroutes your whole life, sends your sanity into a tailspin, and leaves your dignity sitting in the passenger seat, white-knuckled and whispering, "Please don't lose it." It was a Wednesday midweek, nothing special. My boss let me off work early for once, as a thank you for covering someone's shift. A small win. I even grabbed a coffee on the way home, humming along to a playlist that hadn't betrayed me yet with an emotional landmine like Adele. The sky was clear. My spirits were high. Life, in that moment, was just fine. But funny thing about just fine, it's usually the last chapter before the plot twist. I pulled into my driveway, cup still warm, and something immediately felt off. It wasn't the mail piled up like usual or the neighbor's cat giving me the evil eye. No, it was her car, parked exactly where it should be. That was the problem, because she wasn't supposed to be home. She told me she had a long day ahead, something about a staff meeting, a team dinner, a project review. It was always something lately. And I, like the fool I was trained to be by marital optimism, believed her. I walked quietly up the path to the front door, not really thinking, just moving. But as I turned to head inside, I caught a flicker of movement through the living room window. Two silhouettes. One female. One very much not me. At first, I told myself it was innocent. Maybe a friend. Maybe a relative. Maybe. Then I saw it. That soft lean in. The hesitation. The kiss. There it was. A cliché so painfully real it might as well have been sponsored by a sad country song. She was kissing him. On my lawn. Outside my house. In broad daylight. Like it was some Netflix rom-com and not the opening scene of the man's emotional unhinging. I didn't go inside. I didn't yell. I didn't throw my coffee across the yard, though I thought about it. I just stood there for a moment and then turned around, calm as Sunday morning. I went inside quietly, gathered her things, methodical, like I was packing for a business trip, not the collapse of a marriage. I didn't rush. I didn't cry. I placed her neatly folded clothes into a suitcase, slipped in her favorite perfume, even tossed in the sweater she always borrowed from me when it was cold. And then, I left a note on the kitchen counter. It said, "I saw everything. Good luck to you." Then I walked out of the house, and I didn't look back. You know what no one tells you about betrayal? It's quiet. Not the slam the door, scream into a pillow kind of loud. It's the kind of quiet that makes clocks seem louder. That makes you hear your own heartbeat like a drum roll for something that never comes. After I left that note, I didn't go to a bar. Didn't drive into the night like some movie scene. I went to Dave's. Dave is the kind of friend who keeps whiskey in the freezer and doesn't ask questions until you've had your first glass, which, frankly, should qualify a man for sainthood. He opened the door, saw the look on my face, and just nodded. "No, hey man. No, what happened?" Just walked to the freezer and handed me a glass. I took a sip, sat down, exhaled. "I came home early," I said. He waited. She was outside. With him. Still no interruption. They kissed. Like I'd never existed. Dave finally spoke. "What did you do?" I packed her stuff. Left a note. He tilted his head. "That's it. That's it." And then came the only advice he offered that night. "Good. Don't give her the scene she's probably rehearsed." He was right, of course. I knew her better than anyone, enough to know she'd expected fireworks. A dramatic meltdown. Maybe even a shattered plate for effect. But I wasn't going to give her the luxury of that kind of closure. I wanted her to feel the silence. To wonder what I knew. How long I'd known. What I'd do next. I wasn't going to throw a tantrum. I was going to build a plan. Over the next week, I became what I never thought I'd be. Methodical, cold, and strategic. I moved in with Dave temporarily, rented a P.O. box, locked my credit, scrubbed myself off shared accounts, and contacted a lawyer who, bless her soul, had the soft voice of a therapist and the instincts of a shark. And I did it all without telling her a word. She called twice. Left a voicemail. Something about explaining. I never listened. Not because I was afraid to hear it, but because I already knew what she'd say. The script never changes. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. I didn't plan for this to happen. That last one always gets me, like she tripped and fell onto his lips. Please. Mistakes are forgetting to buy milk. She made choices. So I chose something too, revenge. But not the tabloid kind. No loud confrontations. No late-night ambushes. I wasn't going to scream. I was going to smile. And when it landed, it would be quiet. Like thunder far off in the distance. 3 days after I moved out, She finally showed up at Dave's. I was in the garage, boxing up old tools I hadn't touched in years, some symbolic therapy, I guess. Dave came out holding a can of beer and a warning. She's here. I didn't flinch. She alone? He sipped. Yep. Car's still running like she's hoping it'll just be a 5-minute chat. You want me to? No, I said. Let her knock. She knocked. 3 sharp raps. I counted them like heartbeats. I didn't move. Didn't answer. Let Dave do it. He opened the door just wide enough. Hey, is he here? She asked, voice laced with fake calm. Like someone trying to sell you a vacuum they know you don't want. Who? Dave asked. She blinked. My husband. Dave raised an eyebrow. Oh, him. No idea where he is. I could hear the shift in her tone like a car grinding into a lower gear. Dave, come on. I just want to talk to him. I think he said everything he needed to in that note, Dave said, and then, like a bouncer outside a VIP section, closed the door in her face. She stood there for a full minute. I know because I watched through the peephole. She didn't cry, didn't scream, just stared at the door like it had betrayed her too. Eventually, she turned and walked back to her car. Didn't even look up at the window I was standing behind. Maybe she knew I was watching. Maybe she hoped I was. That was the last time I saw her in person. But oh, she started showing up everywhere else. Emails, texts, missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize, burner numbers, probably. She sent a letter once, the old-fashioned kind, full of tear-stained handwriting and wild sentences like, "We're still meant to be." I almost admired the delusion. That letter now lives in a drawer, alongside her wedding vows and a dry-cleaning receipt for the suit I wore when I said, I do. My lawyer had one job: keep things quiet, clean, and ruthless. And man, she delivered. We filed. No warning. And since I had evidence, photo evidence, thanks to a strategically placed home security cam she forgot about, her leverage evaporated like morning fog. We didn't go to court. We didn't drag it out. She signed the papers. Probably with the same pen she used to write me love notes once upon a time. And me? I started my own version of healing. It looked less like therapy and more like gym memberships, car upgrades, and calling up old friends I'd lost while trying to keep a marriage afloat. But don't worry, I hadn't forgotten about him. The one she kissed outside my house like I was already gone. No, I remembered. And he was next. The guy's name was Ryan. Ryan Whitmore. A name so bland it practically came with a khaki starter pack and a Costco membership. The first time I heard it, I laughed. Because of course the man who blew up my marriage had a name that sounded like it belonged to a mid-tier real estate agent who calls himself a people person. But Ryan wasn't a realtor. He was something worse, a motivational speaker. That's right. The man who sunk his teeth into my wife's loyalty gave TEDx talks about unlocking your best self. He had the gall to call himself a clarity coach. The kind of guy who starts every sentence with, "at the end of the day," and ends it with a fist bump. Naturally, my wife had met him at a self-improvement seminar. She wanted growth. I didn't know she meant horizontal. So while she was out there, aligning her chakras and finding her truth, I was left aligning bills and finding out I'd been living with a stranger. After the paperwork was done and her belongings reduced to the memory of what used to hang in my closet, I turned my focus to him. Not out of rage. Not even jealousy. No, this was something else. This was accounting. He took something. Time. Trust. Stability. The least I could do was make sure the universe balanced the books. Now, I wasn't going to punch him. That would have made me the bad guy. I wasn't going to scream at him in a parking lot or leave flaming bags on his porch. Too obvious. Too juvenile. Too satisfying. I wanted the kind of revenge that doesn't end with a viral video. I wanted the kind that makes a man sit bolt upright at 3 a.m. wondering when the floor dropped out. So I watched. That's all. Watched his talks. Read his blog. Followed his brand. Turns out, Ryan had built his entire persona around being a family man. Happy husband. Devoted father of 2. Instagram full of smiling kids, smiling wife, inspirational quotes, and latte art. Ironic. For a guy so obsessed with authentic living, he sure was living a lie. And here's the thing about people who build their world on image. They're terrified of cracks in the paint. I found one. One of his posts, 10 Things My Wife Taught Me About Love, was lifted almost word for word from another blogger. I cross-referenced timestamps, original authorship, and a little screenshot magic. Boom. Plagiarism. No big deal to most people. But for a guy who preached radical honesty, it was dynamite. But I wasn't done. He'd been doing seminars under his LLC, Whitmore Growth Systems, and charging hefty five-figure fees for weekend workshops. A quick dive into state records and one anonymous email to the IRS later. It turns out the guy hadn't filed proper self-employment taxes in over 2 years. Oops. Still, that wasn't the revenge. That was just the canvas. The real masterpiece? His keynote speech at a local leadership conference. Big gig. Recorded. Live-streamed. Packed room. And guess who managed to get a front row seat? Yours truly. I didn't dress like a man scorned. I wore a blazer. Smiled. Nodded along as he strutted across the stage talking about integrity and being the man your children think you are. At one point, he looked right at me. Maybe he didn't recognize me. Maybe he did. Didn't matter. I just kept smiling. Then came the Q&A. And boy, was I ready. I raised my hand. He called on me. Hey, Ryan, I said, calm as a surgeon. How do you reconcile your message of transparency and trust with plagiarizing a blog post from findingitchappensnow.com in your 10 Things My Wife Taught Me article last month? A hush, just for a moment. A stammer. A laugh. He tried to brush it off. Something about inspiration versus imitation. I nodded again, like I'd expected that. Oh, cool. And unrelated, I continued. How do you handle your taxes for your speaking engagements? Do you run everything through your LLC? I asked because some people forget to do that and get audited. Dead silence. A few phones came out. People were Googling before he even finished blinking. I didn't stay for the rest. I just walked out satisfied. Not giddy. Not smug. Just settled. Later that week, his site was down for maintenance. His Instagram got real quiet. The next month, his wife posted a vague story about seeking clarity and new beginnings. I didn't follow up. That wasn't the point. See, revenge isn't always about fireworks or headlines. Sometimes, it's just about nudging someone toward the edge of the cliff they built with their own hands and watching gravity do the rest. It's not rage. It's balance. And let me tell you something. It felt incredible. After Ryan's crash and burn at the leadership conference, life got quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, like waves brushing the shore or a slow morning with coffee in hand. No, this was the kind of quiet that sits next to you on the couch and won't stop staring. Her absence echoed, not just in the empty hangers or the unused half of the bed, but in the silence of questions I didn't want answers to. Did she ever really love me? How long had she been lying? Was I that easy to fool? Those are the kinds of questions that can turn a man bitter, or stupid, or both. But me? I didn't spiral. I structured, organized the wreckage, turned pain into paperwork. The house got cleaned. Not a quick vacuum and Febreze cleaned, deep cleaned. I repainted 2 rooms, fixed a broken gutter, donated the wedding china she insisted on and never once used. I replaced our king-size bed with a full, smaller, quieter mine. I got lean, not out of vanity, out of focus. A breakup diet hits different when it's fueled by betrayal and a gym membership you suddenly have time for. One night, I found myself at a bar, not the divey kind, more of a whiskey and wood grain place where the music doesn't compete with your thoughts. I wasn't looking to meet anyone. I was just sitting with a glass of something sharp, watching the ice melt. And wouldn't you know it, life pulled one more punch. Across the bar, I saw her. Not her. Not the traitor formerly known as my wife. Her friend, Caroline. Caroline was the one who always smiled too politely when I spoke, like she was grading me in her head. I hadn't seen her since the divorce was finalized, and from the look on her face, she hadn't expected to see me either. She walked over with cautious steps, like I might bark or bite. Hey, she said, arms crossed, coat still on. Didn't expect to see you here. Same, I replied, calm and unbothered, like I'd been expecting the ghost of Christmas past to show up any minute. She hesitated. You look good. Divorce suits me. A beat of silence. She laughed once, sharp, involuntary. You always had that dry delivery. You always had a way of showing up when the fire's already out. She didn't sit, but she leaned in. For what it's worth, I told her she was making a mistake. Before or after the second guy? Caroline blinked. You knew? I sipped my drink. I knew enough. Truth is, I had suspected more than just Ryan. There's a certain way someone lies when they've done it before. They get efficient, casual, too smooth, like muscle memory. Cheaters rehearse. And her lines were flawless. Caroline let out a breath. She's not doing great, you know. She wasn't doing great when she kissed someone else in our driveway either. Funny how that works. She says you never yelled, never fought for her, just left. I smiled, not bitter, just amused. Fighting for someone who betrayed you isn't love. It's begging for scraps. She gave a slow nod, not agreeing, but not arguing either. You always did have a way of putting things. Before she walked off, she said, she thinks you'll come around. I looked at her, steady. Then she's still lying to herself. And with that, Caroline left, carrying whatever message she wanted to deliver, or maybe hoping to carry one back. Either way, I didn't care. I went home that night to a clean kitchen, an open window, and peace so loud it drowned out her memory. But the story wasn't done with me yet. A week later, I got a letter. Not from her. Not from Ryan. From someone else entirely. Her mother. Now let me explain something. This woman once told me I made her daughter too comfortable, like that was a flaw. We were cordial at best, awkward at worst. But this letter? It was an apology. For pages. Handwritten. Ink smudged from what I can only assume were tears. Hers or mine. Hard to say. She said she raised her daughter to be better. That she didn't understand where things went wrong. That she was sorry for defending her when she didn't know the whole truth. That she hoped I would find someone who appreciated loyalty the way I did. I folded the letter neatly. Tucked it away. It didn't make anything better. But it made something make sense. Not everyone who stands near a fire agrees with how it started. It also reminded me that pain doesn't just radiate outward. It echoes through everyone involved. And not everyone in her corner wanted to be on that side of the line. Still, I didn't reach out. Not to her. Not to her mom. Not to anyone. Because I wasn't interested in reopening wounds just to show people how well they'd scarred. I was interested in what came next. And soon enough, it came knocking. Not metaphorically. Literally. Knock knock. Thursday, 8:14 p.m. I opened the door, and there he was. No, not him. Someone else. And he was holding an envelope. You're being served, he said. I blinked. Excuse me. Civil suit. Defamation and interference with income. Filed by Ryan Whitmore. I laughed. Out loud. I laughed. I took the envelope, thanked the poor guy doing his job, and closed the door behind me. Then I sat down at the kitchen table, opened the envelope, and read the first line. Ryan was suing me. After all he took, all he lied about, he wanted compensation. Cute. I poured a drink. No ice this time. Because the temperature of my patience was officially boiling. Ryan suing me was like a mosquito filing a complaint after biting a porcupine. The man knew he was wounded, his brand in tatters, his clients vanishing like his credibility. But instead of retreating in shame like a normal person, he doubled down. The claim? Defamation and loss of income. According to Ryan, my public remarks during his Q&A had damaged his ability to book clients and made him the subject of online harassment and reputational decline. He wanted damages. 6 figures. I showed the letter to my lawyer. She laughed. I didn't. I was too busy sharpening my smile. Because here's the thing about guys like Ryan. They love the stage, but they crumble under cross-examination. And lucky for me, I'd done more than sling one-liners from the crowd. I had receipts, screenshots, time-stamped plagiarism, public IRS complaints. And the best part? He signed an NDA, one I found tucked in my ex-wife's filing cabinet when I gathered our paperwork. An NDA between him and his former business partner related to, wait for it, previous misconduct and misrepresentation. He broke it by going public again. So we countersued, not just for damages, but for malicious prosecution. And while Ryan's attorney was probably expecting some ex-husband with a temper, what they got was me. Cold. Organized. Smirking through depositions like I was waiting for dessert. By the time the dust settled, Ryan dropped the suit. Quietly. With a confidentiality clause stapled to the back like a scarlet letter. But I didn't care about winning the case. I cared that he knew. The man he thought he'd humiliated was the one who buried him with a smile. 3 months of silence. And then she came back. Not with a phone call. Not a letter. She showed up at my door, a suitcase in one hand and a face full of humility in the other. Can we talk? She asked. I looked at her for a long moment. I think she expected me to slam the door or cry, or maybe fall back into her arms like none of it had happened. Instead, I stepped onto the porch, closed the door behind me, and leaned against the railing. No, I said. She blinked. Just 5 minutes. For what? I just want to explain. I tilted my head. You had months. You had years. Now you want 5 minutes? I made a mistake. No. You made a series of choices. She looked tired. Older. That same shine in her eyes now looked like dull glass. I lost everything, she whispered. I nodded. And I found something. What? Peace. And then I did what I'd trained myself to do for months. I walked away. Left her standing there. No screaming. No closure. Just her and the echo of what she'd done. She never knocked again. There's a moment after the storm clears when you stop listening for thunder. For me, it came one morning when I realized I hadn't thought about her in days. Not her voice. Not her lies. Not even her perfume, which used to linger like a ghost in my closet. The house was cleaner. My body stronger. My mind sharper. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. I started traveling again. Nothing wild. Just the freedom to wake up on a Saturday and decide to see the ocean, or hike a trail I hadn't walked in years. I met new people. Not in a desperate, post-divorce frenzy, but naturally. Like the world was wide again. One of them was a woman named Elise. A chef. Quiet, confident, and with zero interest in fixing broken men. I'm not a project, she said when we first met. Perfect, I replied. I'm not a mess. We didn't rush. We didn't bleed on each other. We just healed. Separately. Side by side. About a year later, I got an invitation. A high school reunion. 10 years. I almost tossed it. But something made me hold on to it. I didn't go to brag. Didn't go to flash a new woman or flaunt my glow up. I went because I could. I walked in alone. Confident. Calm. I saw old friends, made new jokes, drank one too many bourbons, and laughed at things that used to keep me up at night. She wasn't there. Neither was Ryan. I didn't ask why. I didn't care. I stayed until the music faded and the crowd thinned, then stepped out under the stars and smiled. I had become everything I didn't know I needed to be. They say the best revenge is living well. That's cute. But the real revenge? It's being remembered. Not as the broken man she betrayed. Not as the husband who didn't see it coming. But as the one who walked away with his dignity intact and never looked back. Because someday, when she lies awake in a quiet house that's too empty or a new relationship that feels too familiar, she'll think of me. And she'll realize I didn't scream or fight or beg. I just left her with nothing but the memory of what she destroyed and the knowledge that I never needed her to rebuild. And Ryan? He's probably still out there, rebranding himself for the 4th time, trying to scrape together a YouTube channel no one watches. His name may resurface now and then, but it doesn't matter. Because I'm not in the wreckage anymore. I'm in the after. The good part. The one where the storm has passed, the sky is clear, and the man who walked through hell now walks tall. With both feet, a steady heart. And one hell of a story.